Hello, guys. Recently we have marked an extremely important period since which we may officially say that not just the Russian blitzkrieg failed, but now this war lasts longer than the Second World War for the Soviet army. And I thought it would be really good to discuss why did this happen with the master strategist Dart Putin. I'm a huge fan of you on X, and now I'm super happy that you've opened your bunker for us on YouTube. Welcome to the channel.
Well, thank you very much. Your loyalty is noted, and you will be given a list of places where it's safe to buy tea. Thank you for that.
I saw the list of your bunkers, but anyway, let's begin with
You,
this
you can
question.
have that too if you want.
Let's begin with this a question that made lots of Russian vloggers go crazy. It was a huge wave of panic, and it seems to me that the Russian official media actually banned this comparison. That the fact that the short special military operation, what was supposed to be a blitzkrieg, now lasts longer than the Second World War, or as Russians call it, the Great Patriotic War in 1941, 1945. It is already longer. What's your secret, dear master strategist, for keeping this war so long?
Well, there's no one thing in something as complicated and as genius as this, but there are a few things. If you never define what your goal is, you can never fail to achieve it. So if you never say that, if you claim you never said the goal was to capture Kiev, if you then run away from it or decide to just leave in order to make a peace gesture, then that's fine because you never claimed that that was what it is. And if you go back to our statements, they're very vague. We want to say that we want to denazify Ukraine. What does that even mean? I mean, it means whatever you want it to mean. I mean, it means regime change in reality, but you can tell anybody that it means whatever you want. So you can't fail if you never tell anybody what your goal is. But we have convinced citizens of the world's largest country that it was created peacefully by Jesus, who handed 17 million square kilometers of land to Russians because we oppose gay marriage, and also that Russia has the world's largest amount of land, fossil fuels, and nuclear weapons. But we are powerless victims, unable to influence anything, and it's all a plot of our neighbors to try and break us apart because they want the resources that they can get from somewhere else or won't need and steal them from us, with the added benefit of having our cities that don't have plumbing.
It's the magic of this modern Russian language that you have used, like the gesture of goodwill or a peace gesture when you have to surrender, or, for example, this like negative growth of the Russian economy. So perhaps in this context, we can also talk about your victories, unexpected achievements. And we may say that during these 4 years of war, you've lost a lot of like oil refineries, various military production sites. Among these victories, what was your proudest moment?
Oh, there's too many to single out to just pick just the one. I mean, the first formal goodwill gesture was leaving Snake Island, which effectively surrendered control of the Black Sea to a country that doesn't have a navy, that then proceeded to sink all of our ships in a war that was over us getting access to a warm water port. So that was pretty good. The feint was very good. Of course, we leaving all of those tanks as burning hulks was just part of the plan. And the strategic master strategist first convinces his enemies that he is actually losing, and then he does actually start losing. I am a little worried about what will happen to our oil refineries when it's no longer just Ukrainian drone fragments that are causing all the damage, but when the intact debris starts landing exactly where it's aimed and blowing up, then we might have a couple of problems. My proudest moment is convincing people who claim to be intelligence that we're actually winning and that it's all going to plan, and that this great giant screw up that's about to enter its fifth year is in fact the plan. That's probably my proudest moment.
Thank you so much. You know, here in Ukraine, we often joke that we should name some of our drones newly produced or developed debris so that, like, we won't push you to lie. It will be just very logical.
Yeah, a drone debris landed. Okay.
As a genius who sacrificed like nearly a million, actually a million and 200,000 soldiers already for just a tiny slice of Ukrainian territory. How many more are you prepared how to sacrifice? How many more do you think you need for another tiny part of the Ukrainian territory?
Well, the supreme art of master strategy is to convince your population to die against an enemy that they're not actually fighting. And as you say, 1.2 million of my serfs have been dead or seriously injured for a further 60 kilometers into Ukraine, whereas NATO, the people we claim to be fighting, have advanced hundreds of kilometers to the east without losing a single soldier. Yes, millions of Russians may die, but I am content for them to do so. And with the state of the Russian economy, we won't actually have any money to pay them pensions if they live a long time anyway. So it's a kind of a win-win. So the answer of your question is as many as is necessary,
Win-win
as long as
situation.
it's not me.
Yeah, like send or the Kremlin children who travel the world. It's amazing. Like send more Russians to the meat grinders so that you won't have to pay them pension. It's just
Yeah, I don't have to raise the pension age if the average person doesn't live long enough to achieve a pension or to get it. So there is a certain amount of master strategy in that.
that's
It
a
won't matter if
genius step.
yeah, it doesn't matter if the ruble's worthless if they haven't got anything to buy or they're dead anyway. So
Yeah, that's a indeed master strategist. And you know, that's something that people need to watch when sometimes even the White House repeats this Kremlin narratives that like the good will of Putin is not to invade all of Ukraine. That is their part of the peace negotiations, forgetting that they did everything they could, but some kind of failed to achieve that goal. Many people around the world do not understand what kind of talent you have to possess to make people join the Russian army, to agree to be sent in thousands, in hundreds of thousands to the front lines, understanding they won't return, and now the payments for these soldiers are also getting lower and lower. We've heard that human life is pretty cheap, unfortunately, inside the Russian Federation. But what is your main secret to persuading people to accept it? Is it propaganda or the fact that the Russian population was traumatized for so long? Or I don't know, sacrifice and suffering is central to the Russian mindset. What's the secret behind that?
well, I don't think it's quite correct to say that the payments are getting lower and lower. The advertised payments are getting lower and lower. The actual money that people are getting has remained the same because most of them aren't getting it. Because in order to sign up for these massive bonuses, which by rural peasant Russian standards are rather big, it sounds great. We'll give you 3 times your annual salary in a single go. And oh, by the way, you have to provide your own body armor and your own boots and your own helmet and your own food. And if you want night vision goggles so you don't get killed at night, you have to buy all of that at inflated prices. And then when you die, your parents, your grandparents, whoever, don't get the money because we just don't declare you as dead. So that's kind of one way we've been able to keep it going. And the second way is there is a certain amount of, I suppose, brainwashing where you spend the first 18 years of 20 years of somebody's life telling them that it's glorious to die for Russia. So they sign on the dotted line, take the risk, but you make sure they're dead within 3 weeks because that's not long enough to realize that it isn't glorious. And then you just rinse and repeat, solving your demographic problem in the process, or solving
uh,
your pension problem.
It's actually interesting to see how many people inside Russia now upload videos, including on X, on YouTube, speaking about these problems that they don't get payments for their killed relatives. And actually, it was a poetic phrase like, if you die for your motherland, you live eternally. But we see with the Russian Ministry of Defense approach, that is the solution to the problem of payments. Uh,
Yeah, no, nobody won a war by dying for his country. He's supposed to win it by making the other guy die for his country. We haven't figured that out yet.
um, with so many flights now canceled, not only in the regions bordering with Ukraine, but in Moscow, in Saint Petersburg, your one of your favorite cities. It seems like Ukraine is taking control over your skies. And I know that a lot of Russians were super excited back in 2022 when the special military operation began. Do they share this excitement now when you finally brought that war that they so much wanted back home to Russia? Do they enjoy it? Do they share that excitement?
Well, they share more excitement about that than being sent there themselves. If they're in St. Petersburg or Moscow, they're quite happy to let regional Russians or non-Slavic Russians go and do the dying for them. Um, the most they don't speak against the war. The most loud voices of people who speak against the war are the ones who think we're not being brutal enough in Ukraine. Um, the dilemma that will eventually happen is when these people start protesting. It won't be because they can't fly to see their relatives at Christmas time. It'll be because there's no food on the shelf anymore. And then the question becomes: I have enough money to pay for them to have food, or I have enough money to pay for the riot cops to fly into the city and kill them for protesting, but they haven't got any food, and that's kind of the dictator's dilemma. So, to answer your question, how does it feel? Well, they are free to speak out about it. It's just that they won't be free afterwards.
That's a dictator's advice. We know that recently you've been very busy, and that's perhaps the reason why you did not manage to save some of your colleagues, even though some Kremlin security guarantees were promised to Syria, some geopolitical losses in Middle East, in Armenia, Azerbaijan. Now we very attentively observe what is happening in Iran. Some of these dictators moved to Russia, to Moscow. Maybe one day you will bring them to your bunker for another interview. But sure, unfortunately, new dictators will appear, or some are still shaping. As an inspiration to these wannabe dictators everywhere around the world, what's your advice on how to fail that spectacularly as you have?
Well, you hinted on a geopolitical rule that people are starting to notice, which is if you are in a military alliance with Russia, one of two things will happen. Russia will attack you, or Russia won't do anything when somebody else attacks you. And to a degree, Ukraine can take a certain amount of credit for this if
Budapest
we weren't,
Memorandum.
yeah, if we weren't so strategically incompetent in Ukraine, we probably would have had more air defense systems to give to Venezuela. As it is, we don't even have enough to manage the drone fragment problem. The genius to being a dictator is to never promote anybody competent because they will replace you. The problem is that you then only have incompetent people around you. And there is a dilemma in that a dictator needs a competent army because he has to invade his neighbors to stop the idea of things like democracy and human rights from leaking into his own country. But if he has a competent army, the head of it might decide he'd be a better president than you are. So then you have an army that performs as badly as Russia's has. So it is a tricky one. I don't know. Never buy tea from the same shop twice. Don't sit next to an unlocked window. Get yourself a very, very large table. Generally, the rule for the size of the table is you must find out what the qualifying range for the Russian officer pistol test is, and if they take their test at 10 meters, make sure your table's 12 meters long because then they might miss you.
Okay, I've never thought about that table from this perspective.
Yeah. Well, a master strategist has to think of everything.
Um, Thank you so much. Perhaps you were surprised to see Zelensky in Kupiansk after you've mentioned it a couple of times in your speeches, and that is a proof of this dictatorial approach. Like, never let others people tell you what's really happening. Just keep
Yeah,
saying what.
one of my doubles bit was afraid he was going to be sent to disprove it and then get done in by a Ukrainian drone. But luckily for him, or whichever one that was, it didn't happen. Yeah, Zelensky really pisses me off.
I do hope that in 2026 we will have this opportunity to meet in person with you, with a couple of your doubles somewhere in The Hague.
Mm.
That would be a very good environment for an interview.
Yeah, just please don't tell me that my lawyer is Medvedev because he's the dumbest lawyer alive.
Thank you so much. And my beautiful community, I do encourage you to visit Dart Putin's YouTube bunker and also to follow him on X to be close to the master strategist and to observe all these spectacular Russian failures together. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for your attention in this matter. Do not believe anything till the Kremlin denies it.